All right, so I'm going to get started here. I'll first introduce our panelists. We have Dan Matrafajlo, we have Vosbikian, and we have Jeffrey Kerstetter. And two of these guys, Jeff and Steve, are actually alumni from Rutgers, so I'm encouraged for you guys to ask them. Oh, and I am also an alumni, as you can see by the pen. So I'll get started right away, but I don't want to waste any of your times. How do you achieve what you want? A lot of people will tell you practice, but that misses the whole picture. When you leave law school for the first time, for many of you, it will be the first time that you will no longer have a yardstick to measure your progress by. What that means is that it will be the first time that you won't have grades to assess your performance. You won't have professors who will explain difficult concepts to you, and you won't have a class of peers to commiserate with. The strings will have been cut, and you will be out on your own. The comfort that comes with not ever having to take exams anymore also removes the structure that you depend on to measure your progress. And without that, the only thing that's left that motivates you is you. So this is meant to be thought-provoking because I have not only seen it among all my peers graduated, but I also experienced disorientation myself. Imagine a spacecraft traveling out of the atmosphere. Points of reference become so distant that you can be traveling 500 miles per hour or you could be traveling 0 miles per hour, and you wouldn't know the difference because there's just no way to tell. After all, where are you supposed to find out how long after you graduate when you're supposed to get a job? How much are you supposed to get paid on your first job? Actually, what's even your first job supposed to be? Okay? Let me Google that for you. This is where it gets hard. It's a very large question to ask yourself. And the most popular thing you'll hear coming out of law school is to accept anything that's available, even if you hate it. After all, loans have to be paid, your friends are already making money, you have to become independent, and notice that all of these factors rush you to make a decision. You suddenly become dependent on the advice of people who do not know what it is like for you, because they're in a different profession, or because they come from a different time when the economy was better. Actually, the biggest reason is because they are not you. For those of you that did not have a chance to review the NPR interview that I posted on the Facebook fan page, there's an interview with Stephen Harper. He wrote the book, The Lawyer Bubble, A Profession in Crisis. I can sum up the legal environment, employment situation for you in one word: arid. Here's an example. An attorney friend of mine set out an ad for an entry-level position. Not only did multiple attorneys with many years of experience apply for this position, but a Harvard graduate with 15 years of experience applied for that entry-level position. So your competition right now is not just the level or the record number of law graduates that are leaving law schools, but it's also all of these individuals who lost their jobs in the economy when the economy had to tighten its belt. There has never been a more difficult time for entering attorneys. And ironically enough, this is actually a good thing. In this environment, it is no longer enough to simply put in the work. You are competing against men and women with families, people who have mortgages, people who have meticulously built their lives and now can lose them. These individuals are not looking for a job so they could start their lives. They are desperate for any position they can acquire to survive. And you have to ask yourself, how can you compete against that type of motivation? The answer to this is the same as the answer, what else do you love to do? What gets you excited? Do you race? Do you bake cakes? I don't know, do you guys run fantasy sports tournaments? Because there are too many lawyers and not enough law jobs, you now have an opportunity and an excuse to create your own type of job. Consider how motivated you are when you want to do something. Not when you're doing an assignment that somebody else gives you, But what if you put together a ski trip over a weekend? Or what if you're getting ready for a date with some new attractive person that you met? There was a point in the past couple of years when I was working multiple part-time jobs. I had no benefits, I had low pay, I hated the work that I was doing. And the anxiety, stress, and frustration was wreaking havoc on my personal life. And here I was, about to look for any job that will take me, about to do the same thing again, and expecting a different result. Do you know what they call that? It's a self-defeating cycle. This is when I did something different. Instead of asking myself what would make me happy, I took the time to reflect and I asked myself, what has made me happy throughout my life? This kind of objective reflection produced a goal for me that was not influenced by my limited perspective or changing tastes. My answer is I traveled. I studied abroad 5 times. I backpacked across several continents on my own, and I even found a job working as a tour guide in Hawaii for a summer. And I did this all while I was working, earning 2 degrees at undergrad, working multiple part-time jobs to support myself, and on top of that, throughout law school. Now, applying this revelation at that point in my life, I did what made me happy, and this was against all the advice that I received in the world. And I started a company called EXP Adventures. I actually have stickers for you guys over here if you want to take a look. Our company now takes people abroad on 7-day trips or longer to remote parts of the world in expedition-style tours. And I am still an attorney practicing on average 60 hours per week in Manhattan. In fact, because I'm doing what I love, I am an active member of the New York Bar Association's African Affairs Committee. I am a legal consultant to international companies. I'm developing trips for attorneys such as yourselves, just when you get out of law school, to earn experience working abroad for international governments. And I lecture. Now, getting back to your competition. The downside of desperation for survival is that those individuals who grasp at any opportunity to stay afloat become anxious and frustrated with the entire process. Now, the difference from that and identifying a passion and a long-term goal that you want to work towards is that any progress doesn't feel like a breath to a drowning man. It is a reward that brings you closer to the ultimate ideal life that you want to have. So my advice to you is the following, and I encourage you to write it down on the handout. There's a space at the top. Number 1, identify your goal. This is supremely important, and I encourage you to take your time, do not let others influence you, and make sure it is something you are comfortable with believing. Number 2, be passionate about your goal. You chose this as your ultimate goal, so you have to work as hard as possible and do whatever it takes and never give up. Number 3, identify everything as a resource. Do you guys get coffee at the same place every day? Why don't you ask the clerk that serves coffee if there's ever a time when people in suits come through it? And what have you done? You just created a networking opportunity for yourself. Just putting yourself in the same place as these guys who pass through on their way to court or on their way out of court. Number 4, sell yourself 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Never feel shameful. You will become your passion, and everyone will ultimately identify you with the person you want to become. So you have to bring business cards with you wherever you go and always represent the person you want to become. And finally, number 5, there's no failing. There's only learning. Success is not a straight path. It is a maze of dead ends and wrong turns. Becoming discouraged because the first direction didn't work out is just wasting time. So evaluate your outcomes constructively and utilize what you learned on your next approach. And if you follow all of those steps, you will get to where you want to be. And now I'm honored to present to you a panel of individuals who took matters into their own hands and actually developed their own law firms. And so the rest of the handout follows what they're going to be saying. And I just want to thank you for coming and taking this opportunity to learn.